It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
There's a powerful tool you may not be thinking about when it comes to preserving your wealth for your loved ones. Our money star, J. Barry Watts, is here to talk you through the ins and outs and the pros and cons of life insurance as a retirement planning tool, because there's a lot you might not know about it. Thanks for joining us for our Mother's Day edition of Watts on Wealth this Sunday. I'm your host, Ralph Hipp, along with Barry, who's going to talk with us this hour about an all-weather retirement strategy for Mom's Day. By the way, as we start the show all around Springfield, wherever you are, you can reach out to Barry by calling 417-200-3500. And hi there, Barry Watts.
Well, hello, Ralph, and happy Mother's Day to you. I don't know if you can tell another guy happy Mother's Day, but I guess I just did.
Well, we came from my mom, so it's okay with me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, happy Mother's Day to all the women out there. They make our life work. For those of us who are ovarian challenged, that's what I'll call us. And a special shout out to my mom, who contributed so much to who I am today. Her name is Cheryl Watts. So I'm going to dedicate this show to my mom, Cheryl Watts, a retired public school teacher. She resides down in Republic, Missouri with my dad. They've been married 62 years next month. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you.
I hope she's listening this morning. Well, to my mom, and my mom was Valerie. She's been gone for 2 years now, lived to be 89. She couldn't make it to 100, Barry, but my mom was my biggest fan, and she would probably be saying, how do I get that Barry Watts show on my phone? How, like down there in Florida, how can I hear Ralph and talk to this guy? So, or if they have the Barry Watts show up there high above, she'd be looking for that and getting some help on that. But yeah, just a great mom, and always was listening whenever she could to her son on the radio or watching on TV. So a big supporter, and love you, Mom, and wish you were back here again. But I know you're doing well up there. So.
You know, I know so many people who have bad parent stories, and I am not one of them. Fortunately, I'm so grateful. I had great parents. They weren't perfect, but they were just babies when they had me. My mother was 18 when I was born. Wow. Dad was 20. So I like to say I raised my parents, and there's a lot of truth to that, and they would agree with that. If they're home listening to the show right now, they're probably chuckling about that. One of the things I remember my dad used to say to me, this is not Mom, this was Dad. I remember him, he used to whip me. Did your parents whip you, Ralph?
My dad did. Here's a quick story, Barry. You know those old TV antennas you'd turn?
Oh, yeah, I do.
We'd watch Ed Sullivan and turn it over to watch Bonanza and turn that TV aerial. So my dad got a new one. He was going to try it out. He would try before you buy. Didn't want to necessarily buy it. So he laid the new one out there, and I just broke it all to smithereens. We were having sword fights with those little pieces of that TV antenna. That's the one time I remember he whipped me good for tearing it, because we couldn't watch any TV. We had to get the new ones.
Did you ever have to go cut your own limb off of the peach tree so they could whip you with a limb?
Gosh, no, I don't recall that. It was a belt, or like I said, that TV antenna piece. Boy,
well, I remember my dad used to tell me.
You got
Dad would say, I'm whipping you because I love you. And, I think some people today would hear that and think that was a dumb thing to say. No, even when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, I knew what he meant and I believed him. I didn't like it, but I got it. So I had great parents, and today we salute my great mom on Mother's Day. And lest I forget, happy Mother's Day to the mama who made me a daddy, Kelly Box Watts. Happy Mother's Day, baby. I love you. Ralph, I call her my little one.
And why do you call her that? I've heard you mention that a few times on the show.
Well, you've met her. She's kind of tiny, 115 pounds.
Yeah.
So I just would have difficulty telling you how much I love that girl. I hope she's listening. I doubt she is. But I would say I'm alive today because of Kelly. I am so grateful for her encouragement and support, and she has kept the trains running in my life we've been married 29 years, and even a year or so before we got married, she was already taking over the running of my trains. She's just the most wonderful person I know. She's a phenomenal Christian woman who has learned in those 29 years to walk out her faith and live it out more powerfully. She raised 2 of the most amazing young women in my daughters. And I just can't tell you how much I love Kelly. So happy Mother's Day to her.
Well, I hope you woke her up to hear that, Barry. That's awesome. And I know how much she means to you. And for me and Sheila, which I have mentioned on the show before, Sheila and I will be celebrating our 35th anniversary. I'm 70. We've been together 35, the best half of my life, and our two young kids who are all grown up now. Just a great mom to our kids. And I can never thank her enough for bringing them into the world. So to Sheila, hope she has a great Mom's Day today, too. Barry, what would you say? How would you describe your marriage? You and Kelly have a modern marriage, or being the Christian that you are, would you call it a more traditional marriage?
Well, that's interesting because you tied the Christian question in there, and the question in my mind then is, well, to what degree does that piece influence whether it's more modern or traditional? I'd have to think that all through, but it would be an interesting question to ask my children, and I'm pretty sure I know what they would say. I think they would say, "Oh no, it's traditional." The way Kelly and I work it is, I bring home the bacon and she cooks it. I bring home the money and she manages the checkbook and pays the bills. And by the way, she also mows the yard and tends the farm, and she hauls her own lawnmower to the repair shop. And it's a big driver mower that she has to haul on the trailer. And here's a great one. This is a funny story about Kelly. So one day I had a flat on my tractor. One of the front tires was flat, and I didn't have time to get it fixed, had to get to the office or whatever. And so I just left the tractor sitting out in the back lot behind the barn. Kelly changed a tractor tire, which I told you she weighs 115 pounds. I wouldn't have. It was amazing. She took the tire off, took it into town, had it patched, brought it back out, put it back on the tractor, screwed the lug nuts down. And when I got home, the tractor was working. See, I told you she's an awesome, awesome woman. Now, and so for you guys who don't have a woman who can change a tractor tire, well, you just don't know what you're missing.
That's right. She's superwoman on that.
She really is. And I did something kind of funny recently. I've got a 28-foot gooseneck stock trailer that we haul cattle and so forth in. And Kelly, she isn't really a truck backer upper. In fact, she can't back up a little car very, very well. No, but I've been trying to teach her about that. And recently, I actually let her drive the truck and the stock trailer pulling behind it over to the sale barn where we had to take a load of cattle. So not only did she have a big vehicle, but it was heavily packed. And she did a great job. But so we're working on all those things, and she loves the challenge of that. She likes to be challenged on that. One of the most fun things we ever did for her birthday. I've got a friend who farms 5,000 acres up on the Missouri River. And my daughter had this idea. She said, "Hey, Dad, you ought to take Mom up and see if she could ride on Tom's combine." And this friend with the 5,000 acres, he's got a $600,000 combine. It drives itself. You just point it in the direction, punch the button, and it finds the crop and it harvests the crop, and you just kind of ride along. So I took Kel up, and she was in the height of her glory. In fact, on the second pass around the field, I looked up, and she's actually sitting in the driver's seat on the combine.
Yeah.
So my Kelly is a special, special woman. And she just takes such great care of me, and it makes me want to provide for her and protect her all the more. And I sure love her a whole bunch, and I celebrate her here on Mother's Day.
I love what you said about that. And I think one of the points of our show for Mother's Day, Barry, is for us to provide for our wives and our mothers, provide for them. And also, I know we want to get into in this hour how the wives and mothers, when we're gone, how they can empower themselves to continue to save and make the retirement portfolio. Not that that's the man's job, but that she has the power and the wisdom to do that as well. We sure owe the women in our lives, our wives and our moms, a lot. And Barry, would you say that you learned more from your mother or your father? And I would also add, did you learn more from your mother or your father when you were a kid about maybe saving money?
Well, great question. Because I learned different things from each of them. And I'd say they were pretty much united in what they taught me. It was the same message, a lot of consistency in my family.
In their own way.
It wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of consistency there. Now, I'm more like my dad. I'm a carbon copy of Dad. In fact, we walk and talk alike and look alike. And as I walk down the streets, I'll never forget this happened here in Springfield over by Kraft near Bennett Street and Glenstone.
Oh, yeah.
I was going into a place of business there, and I stepped out of my car, and this lady ran up to me and she said, "Oh, Jim." And she just started in and started talking to me. And I'm just looking at her, but I knew what her problem was because she had called me Dad's name, which is Jim. And she talked and talked and talked. And like we were like 3 minutes deep. She had never come up for air. And she looked at me and she said, "You're not Jim, are you?" No, I'm not. I'm Barry. So I take a lot after Dad, but I learned a lot from Mom as well. And I would tell you one of the places my financial education began, Ralph, when I was 8 years old, I wrote a check because I had a checking account. There's a lesson for you right there. When I was 8 years old, I wrote a check to the Walmart in Aurora, Missouri. It was a check for $8 and something, and it was for a new first base mitt. It was red colored. I remember that. And so, my parents were teaching me about money then. I remember about the same age. Well, it was actually first grade. Mom and Dad had bought a farm, and we got the first calf, and the first calf was going to be mine. So he went and bought a calf from a guy down in Stone County named Willie Rice. He's been gone long enough, nobody will remember him probably. Some of the Rice family, if they're listening, would still know who he is, obviously. But I don't know if it was $40 or $60. I feel like it was $60, which we're going back to like 1969. That was a pretty good sum of money. And Mom, Dad bought this calf. Well, then he's going to be my calf. And so I had to sign a contract to buy this calf, and I paid for him over time. So there was my first loan when I was in first grade. And so I remember Mom would take the contract, and I would, if I got $5 for my birthday or something, well, then I would give $5 to Mom, and I was paying down my calf, and I finally got him paid off. And I remember when they wrote paid in full on it, and I wish I still had that. It may exist in the family file somewhere. But those are the kinds of ways that my parents helped me learn about finances. I appreciate it. I think it's made me a significant part of who I am today, and has equipped me to help people today.
Yeah, and look at who they made. Yeah, from that first lesson there. And if they call you Jim, now your name is James Barry Watts, so she wasn't totally wrong. Isn't that right?
No, his name is James Ray Watts. And so people ask, what the deal is with the J. Well, it's because I would always go to the doctor or wherever, and they would say, "Hey, James Watts." And I'd just sit there because that's not me. I'm Barry, So in college, I used to put quotes around Barry, trying to emphasize Barry. And I'd put parenthesis around the James. And I finally figured out when I was 20 years old, if you'll just be J. Barry Watts, then it sort of kind of works. So anyway, that's how Dad and I share the first name.
It is James, right?
It is James. That's correct.
Like I said, she wasn't totally wrong there. Hey, Barry, it's time for our first break, and welcome into our Mother's Day show. Hope you can, before you head over to church this Sunday morning, be with us for the whole hour. I'm Ralph Hipp, along with J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. Barry's number during the week, or really any time, you can text, visit, or call during the week at 417-200-3500. That is 200-3500. As my wife says, use your zeros, Ralph. So that's the number. Hang on to that number and hang on to where you are on the radio dial. Barry and I will be right back after this message.
Retirement planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his kit. In it, you'll find a copy of his retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your wealth care kit, text KIT to 417-200-3500. That's KIT to 417-200-3500.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
Looking to see what Barry Watts can do for you? Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in, and along with J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation, welcome back into our Watts on Wealth radio show for this weekend. One of the things we want to go over today, Barry, is life insurance as a retirement planning tool. Interestingly enough, there have been life insurance strategies used to create long-term care protection, and you used that for your mother, didn't you?
I use it for my mom, yes, and I use it personally. And so, the whole idea of life insurance for retirement planning, I know some people have probably already turned the radio off because we said the word life insurance and it just was anathema to them. And that's really unfortunate because it gets a bad rap because of what people think about life insurance. And really, when we say life insurance, what most people think of is death insurance because it pays if you die. And everybody pretty much resents paying for it. They, of course, hope they'll never use it. I mean, who wants to talk about that? And I think they even feel a bit bitter toward insurance companies and they're suspect of life insurance agents. And that's really a great shame because life insurance can be a very powerful tool. I will tell you, it is an extremely important part of my own personal retirement strategy. And a number of our clients use life insurance strategies, and they work really well for them. So I would say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
All right. Now, your mom is also, you describe her like a Swiss Army knife, and we know what that is. There's no end to the ways that you can use all the parts of a Swiss Army knife where she could help us out. So tell me, Barry, this idea of life insurance as a retirement planning strategy and using life insurance while we're still alive, why is that something we really ought to think about?
Well, I don't know that everyone should think about it, Ralph. It fits for some people, and for the right people, it's a perfect strategy, and for other people, not so much. But here's what you need to understand is that life insurance can be used to fund tax-free income in retirement, and it can also fund tax-free long-term care. So life insurance itself falls under Internal Revenue Code Section 7702. And Section 7702 of the Internal Revenue Code says anything that happens inside of a life insurance policy can be tax-free because there's a death benefit associated with it. And it says all death benefits are tax-free. So if you buy a life insurance policy that's just what they call term life, meaning you put some money in and if you die, you get paid. But if you don't die, then they just keep the money. Well, they can take that kind of policy and they can bolt onto it a savings account. And in that savings account, it creates, that's where additional money that you might put into the policy goes. And so that's the savings component of life insurance. And that savings component can actually earn a stock market index related rate of interest. So its earnings can be based on the S&P 500. So isn't that interesting? We now have a life insurance policy that instead of growing at 2 or 3% is growing at S&P 500 kinds of rates. And here's the best part. Then when you decide to take that money out later on in life to spend in retirement, you can use that money tax-free. It can be distributed to you tax-free. So I think that's phenomenal in and of itself. My own policy is built to do that, and it's going to give me darn near 6 figures in income tax-free. Just from that alone. And then also you can bolt onto these, well, they have inherent in them the death benefit. And here's the cool part. Insurance companies figured out that people needed their money before they died to pay for their long-term care. So the death benefit can actually be used as a living benefit to pay for long-term care, and it's tax-free. So, Ralph, I liken life insurance to an oversized Roth IRA. It's very similar. It's similar because a Roth IRA is tax-free and life insurance is tax-free. Now, a Roth can grow your money at rates tied to the stock market index, and life insurance can grow your money at rates tied to a stock market index. So the difference is there are limits on how much money you can put into a Roth, and there are no limits on how much you can put into a life insurance policy. So if you don't have any limit on how much you can contribute, and if it can grow your money tax-free and you can withdraw it tax-free, and it's self-completing, meaning if you start it today with a big plan for the future and you die tomorrow, it creates a big pool of cash for your spouse to retire on. Well, I think it can be a good deal, and it's something that should be considered and evaluated about whether or not it should be a part of your retirement plan.
See, and friends, how many of you knew that already? And I wish we could rewind if we were listening in our home or our car to the radio to rewind that and hear that part again. But friends, if you'd like to have your own conversation with Barry, what did you say about life insurance, Barry? Once again, that number around Springfield is 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500 to reach Barry at the WealthCare Corporation. We're talking over life insurance is a great retirement planning tool, and we talk on the show often, Barry, about how taxes are going higher January 1 of 2026. How does life insurance that we have, maybe insurance by then, help us protect against that?
Well, Ralph, you just mentioned you wished you could rewind this, and you sort of can. So I'm going to tell you how that works, and then I'm going to answer your question. So right. I also do a podcast. The podcast is called The Truth About Taxes and Retirement. And if you'll go to wherever you get your podcasts, the Apple Podcast Center, whatever your podcast app is, and if you just type in The Truth About Taxes and Retirement, or look for Barry Watts, but probably the show name will get you there quicker, you'll find my podcast. And there is a podcast that I did sometime, probably about a year ago, and it's got life insurance in the title. I can't exactly remember the name of that podcast. I think it's Who Wants Life Insurance? Who Needs Life Insurance? Maybe.
Yeah, when we enter life insurance and search for that.
Well, if you'll just go look for that, there's an hour-long podcast where we talk all about this. So if you're interested in the topic, that's the place you might get it more. Now, you asked me, Ralph, about the taxes. And by the way, the podcast is The Truth About Taxes and Retirement. So here's the tax component. We often talk about the Roth account, the Roth IRA, and how it's tax-free and grows money tax-free and distributes it tax-free. And so because income from a Roth is tax-free, it means it does not cause you to pay taxes on Social Security, and it does not increase what you pay for Medicare. And some people didn't even know that what you paid for Medicare could be increased. Some people don't even know you pay for Medicare, but you do. So here's the problem. While the Roth is extremely beneficial, there's an annual limit on how much you can put into the Roth. You can only contribute $7,000 a year. Now, if you're over 50, you can contribute another $1,000, so that's $8,000 a year. And that's nice, but it's hard to create real wealth at only $7,000 or $8,000 a year when we really need to put $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 a year in. And a LIRP, a life insurance retirement plan, can be like a tax-free Roth IRA, except there's no limit on how much you can contribute to it. So I have clients who put over $100,000 a year into their life insurance retirement plan, not because they're looking for the death benefit, but they want access to the tax-free benefits of life insurance, the growth tax-free from the stock market index, the distribution tax-free, and the tax-free coverage for long-term care if they need it. So, we said mom was the Swiss Army knife. Well, life insurance is the Swiss Army knife as well. Sure. And so these are just great tools. They're not appropriate for everyone. They don't fit everyone. But where they fit, they are phenomenal. And if people can get over the fact that it's insurance, because everybody hates insurance, I get it. I don't blame you. If they can get over the fact that it's insurance and realize insurance has been around for 1,000 years and it's a very effective tool if it's used properly and appropriately, this can really be phenomenal and be a needle mover and a game changer for people.
Absolutely. So now you know more about that. And Barry, talk about rewinding. You can rewind a podcast. So that is the best.
That's true.
And hear that 2 or 3 times. A terrific strategy on life insurance retirement plan. Barry got a call this week from a woman who's 82, and she's been watching our TV show, our brand new TV show, Watts on Wealth, Sunday mornings on KY3. And Barry, from what I heard, she told you, I had no idea about what taxes we're going to do in the future. My advisor never mentioned it. So if that describes you, call Barry Watts and the WealthCare team right away. You can text, visit, or call them during the week at 417-200-3500. Barry and his terrific team can help you reduce your taxes in retirement, all kinds of ways to do that. Sometimes saving you as much as 6 figures, and avoid the taxes on Social Security, and then make sure you pay that lowest possible amount that you could for Medicare. So once again, that number to reach out to Barry is 417-200-3500. Leave a message today, and they'll call you back first thing Monday morning. And Barry, we can text the word KIT, K-I-T, to that number. What do we receive with your Retirement Confidence Kit?
Well, there are a number of pieces of information that are in the Retirement Confidence Kit that if you like to read rather than listen, then you can read the steps that you need to go through to be sure that you have your retirement in order and you're ready to pull the trigger. So the Retirement Confidence Kit is kind of a primer for what happens when we see people here in our office to do retirement planning for them and be sure they have income to last till age 100.
And what's the bottom line on taxes? We have about a year and a half to go till that window of opportunity closes. Whether we might see some similar things after 2026, depending on what happens in the election. But what's happening in January 2026 and in this next 18 months or so, Barry? How do we get ready for that?
Well, Ralph, what you have to realize, and people don't know this. In fact, I had an executive at a company with over 1,000 employees just say to me yesterday, "Oh my goodness, Barry, until I heard you and Ralph talking about it on the radio, I had no idea of what was going to happen to taxes in the future, and that taxes are," here's what he said, "I had no idea that taxes are at the lowest right now that they will ever be in the rest of my lifetime."
Right.
And that's the big message. Taxes are not going lower. And the big driver, there are lots of reasons for that, but the big driver is federal government spending and not raising taxes to pay the debt. I don't think anybody cares about that, but they do have to pay the interest. And interest rates have gone higher. And so interest alone is shooting the roof off of the federal expenditure. And the only place to get the money to pay the interest is from the taxpayers. And so it's not a matter of if taxes go up, but when taxes go up. And so all of these things have an impact on your retirement, and people just don't even know about that. And they don't, even if they do know about it, they think, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Oh, yes, there is. There are tools and techniques and strategies you can use. Ralph, I was trained by the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, to be a tax strategist. We represent people before the IRS when they have disputes with them. Attorneys can do that. CPAs can do that. We have a CPA in our office who used to work for the IRS, but I can do that as well. I'm what's called an enrolled. And so we learned about ways to help people reduce and eliminate taxes that their CPAs don't even know about. Because they don't train for that. You know, the A in CPA stands for accountant. They're in charge of tallying up all the numbers and being sure they all add out correctly. So we bring tax strategy to the table so we can do the analysis for a client. And then in the process of analyzing that, we can figure out if there's an opportunity for them to save. And right now we've got a narrow window for the next 18 months or so to save on taxes before they go higher. And so if you'd like for us to help you with that, we'll do a tax analysis for you. But you have to call us at 417-200-3500, 3500. 417-200-3500 and set up a time. And you and I'll talk on the phone. I just talked to a really nice gentleman down in Ozark, Missouri today, and we scheduled an appointment for him to come in and see us. He'd been listening to you, Ralph, on the radio show.
Oh,
and
great.
We'll help with an analysis. You might be surprised about the taxes that you're going to be able to avoid paying as we go forward.
Yes, indeed, friends, and get that tax analysis. Barry Watts at the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, time to stop a little bit here for the news. We'll take a brief break here and back with more. The rest of our Mother's Day Watts on Wealth show in just a moment. Don't go away.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
Welcome back in. With everything going on in the world right now, and oh my gosh, there's so much all around the world, your finances need to be able to weather any financial storm out there. Well, for this next half of the show, we'll start to outline some of the major financial risks on the horizon today as we're almost into the second half of 2024. We're in the second half of our show now. And Barry and I are going to talk about some of the all-weather strategies which might help you preserve your savings no matter what kind of storms are unfolding in the financial world. Barry, we've got everything here. Even just if I sliced off the part of the wars going on, the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel with Hamas, the campus protests, even that. How does all this rock our boat on our financial world?
Well, Ralph, I don't know about you, but it does honestly rock my boat emotionally a little bit. When I look at all these campus protests, I tend to get angry about those, by the way. I'm like, sit down, shut up, go back to class. And okay, if you don't like the Jews, that's fine. You don't have to like anybody, but you don't get to call for their annihilation and kick them off campus and out of the country. No, that's not the way America works. Everybody gets a seat at the table in America. And when you bring crappy ideas to the table, we're going to tell you they're crappy ideas. But if you bring good ideas to the table that are about making the country stronger and better, that is for the good of fellow man, we're going to listen and we're going to try to implement those ideas. And so we live in a messy time is what I would say. Our economic climate right now makes retirement planning more challenging. First of all, because just of inflation alone, the Biden administration would like you to believe that inflation is now under control. Well, baloney. If inflation were under control, the Fed would reduce interest rates. And, they just met about 10 days ago. And when the Fed met, they said, we're going to leave interest rates exactly where they are. And that means that inflation is not under control. In fact, it's at about 3% right now, and the Fed has a target of it for 2%. So we have inflation 50% higher than they want it to be, and the tool for controlling that is interest rates, and the Fed has left those interest rates higher. I had a lady yesterday in my office who was 60, I think she was 67 years old, and her question to me was, am I going to continue to get my Social Security, or is it going to go away? Listen to the uncertainty. And she's already drawing Social Security. Now, for those of you who have that question, let me tell you, you're going to get your Social Security check. They're not going to take it away from you. I don't even think that your Social Security will diminish. I do think that Social Security may be taken from us in other ways through higher taxes on assets that are in other pockets. But I don't think Congressman Burleson or anybody else in Washington is going to reduce your Social Security check. They're just going to tax you in some other way. And that tax is one of the things that we're really concerned about as we begin withdrawing from retirement savings. Now, here's something that people don't think about like they should. So if you're in your late 60s, let's say mid 60s, and you have perhaps retired or about to, but you haven't taken anything out of your IRA and you don't plan to until you get to be 73 or 75, depending on what age the required minimum distribution hits you. And if you were born in the 1950s, it hits you at age 73. If you're born in the 1960s, it hits you at age 75. Well, what you don't know is your IRA is probably going to get close to doubling in value by that time. And when you start taking money out of that in a required minimum distribution, the amount of money that you're required to take is in many cases going to cause you to jump into higher tax brackets. And oh, by the way, the tax brackets will have been moved higher themselves. So it'll be an even higher tax than you anticipated. And that tax will, that amount of income you're taking out of your required distribution will cause your Social Security tax to go up and cause you to pay more on Medicare. So there's a storm that's swirling all around. And Ralph, every time I meet with a client in our second meeting, in our first meeting, which we call a peace of mind visit, I actually draw a picture on the whiteboard of a tornado. Now, I'm not a very good artist, so you have to use your imagination. But the point is, all these things are a storm. And these things are going to get the best of us if we aren't careful, and we need to be sure that we take advantage and protect ourselves from it.
Barry, I'm kind of concerned when I listen to the show. You're always holding back on us. You never let us know what you really feel. No.
Yeah, there's a story about that. I wish I had time to tell, but no, Ralph, you will always know where you stand. And I discovered one time some guys who were working with me were afraid, and they were afraid the other shoe was going to drop. And I'm like, dude, there's not any other shoe. I've told you everything I think. It's right out there on the table. So, no, I don't hold back. Here's the deal, Ralph. You mean too much to me. You mean too much to me for me to pussyfoot around with you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to try. If it's bad truth, I'm going to try to make it as soft as I can. But it's important that you know the truth, and it's important that you be able to act on the truth. We're going to be people of truth.
Get that first visit right away as soon as we can at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500 for Barry Watts and the Wealth Care Corporation. And this is Ralph Hipp with the Watts on Wealth radio show and the podcast for this week. Well, none of us suffer more from high inflation than we retired people. And I'm 70 now. And back in the 1970s, when I was in my 20s, retirees who were living on a fixed income were hit the hardest even then, 50 years ago, as prices were still skyrocketing back then. We had the oil embargo, the gas prices through the roof. They still are through the roof. Every year, Barry, retirees get poorer, and inflation is a big worry for all of us in that age bracket.
Well, and as it should be, because inflation never sleeps. It never stops. It may ramp up or it could slow down, but it never goes away. And so if you want to maintain your current standard of living in retirement, You have to understand what rising inflation does to you and how to protect yourself from rising inflation. And so one of the things that we do is we try to educate people on this and show them how to protect themselves. And so we offer a no cost. And the reason there's no cost is we don't know for sure that we can help you. So we don't charge you in the event it's not going to be helpful to you. Now, we offer a no cost, no obligation inflation retirement income analysis to show you what your retirement income looks like all the way to age 100. And what the impact of inflation is going to be on your retirement income, and help you figure out how much you're going to need for retirement every year going forward, because it's going to be a lot more in 10 years and 15 years than it is today. And so we'll start with today's number and work our way that direction. And then we'll be able to talk about some options for generating the amount of income that you need. So again, Ralph, we don't charge for that because we don't know for certain that we can help you. So there's no cost, no obligation. And if you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, that's kind of the number that we need to start with to be able to really help you. Well, then call our team and we'll help you. It's 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500, and ask for an inflation retirement income analysis. And we'll be happy to help you figure out what your inflation adjusted income number is going to need to be every year for the rest of your life. And so that is going to be protective for a lot of folks. And they're going to need that money, Ralph, because they're going to have to pay more for healthcare. They're going to have to pay more for income taxes. And so we need to protect people. And one way to do it is getting ourselves clear on the impact of inflation.
Now, if you're the kind of a person, friend, so that I don't like to leave a message, I like to talk to the person directly, I don't leave a message on a voicemail, you could text VISIT today, this Sunday, text VISIT, V-I-S-I-T, to that same number, and Barry, and then you'll get back with them first thing in the morning, right?
We absolutely will have someone call them first thing in the morning. They'll set up a time on the telephone to talk with me. We also can schedule them in directly if they prefer, but some people like to start with a telephone conversation. We're happy to do that. It takes about 15 minutes. It takes a few days to get those scheduled sometimes, but we'll have the conversation that they need to have, and we'll see if it's appropriate for them to come in and sit down. It isn't always. Sometimes we tell them, nah, I don't think you're in a situation where I can help you. But if we can, we're glad to do that, because that's why we come to work, is to help people.
There you go. At the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. Barry, by the way, we love to mention, where are you located? We can set our GPS on our phone and get right to you. Where are you located there?
It's real simple. We're at Battlefield and 65.
Okay.
Most people who know Springfield know if you're on Battlefield Road out near 65, they know where the big supermarket is there, the Price Cutter, and then right across the road from it, Second Baptist Church, the big white church. Well, that's at the corner of Battlefield and Ingram Mill. You just turn north right there, and before you get to Glendale High School, which is just around the corner, on the curve in the road, our offices are located really just about a 3-minute walk north of Battlefield Road at Battlefield and 65.
Barry and I are just talking one-on-one with you, and we're sure glad you're with us for the What's on Wealth radio show. Barry, also, before we get to our next question, there are people who, I'm not leaving all my information in a voicemail. Hopefully you'll just give your name and number. But have you had people just describe on and on and on their situation? You shouldn't be telling me this. Come tell me in person. Have you had a voicemail that goes through their whole life story?
Yeah, we kind of did just yesterday, in fact.
Oh, really?
We had a lady leave a voicemail, and it was a rather confusing one. And we got a lot more information than we needed about things we didn't need to have information on. But you know what? That's okay. What she said in her voicemail is, dude, this tax thing, I wasn't aware that's a problem, and I need to talk about that. And so we're going to try to help her with her situation. But, all we need is your name and your phone number, and kind of tell us in one sentence what you want to talk about, which for most people, it's retirement income or taxes. And then we'll call you back and get the information we need.
Oh, excellent. Yes, on to our next topic, which is taxes, and specifically, Barry, estate taxes. And we thought that those were not really a concern for most people. Are they?
Well, yes, they are, but in a different way than you think. So, Ralph, estate taxes right now, if you properly structure your estate, you can leave about $13 million to your kids, and your spouse can leave about $13 million to your kids. So, $26 million, that covers most of the listeners to our show. Now, what you have to be aware of is in 2026, so only about 18 months from now, that number rolls back to 2017 numbers. It's going to be about $6 million instead of $13 million. So you could still leave 6 and 6 for you and your spouse, about $12 million to your kids. That probably covers most people. And yet there are taxes that you will pay at death that are not estate taxes, but you still have to pay them. So they're taxes that you pay just for the privilege of dying. And here's an example. If you die with $500,000 in an IRA account, your children could pay as much as $185,000 in federal income taxes to Washington, D.C., all because you died. And that's a burden most people don't want to leave to their kids, and they don't even realize they are leaving them to their kids. They say, oh, I'm under the estate tax threshold. It won't be a problem. Nope. If you die with money in an IRA or a 401k or any type of an account like that, you're still going to be taxed at death. And we help people avoid and prepay those kind of taxes so that they don't have to deal with them upon death.
Very good. More of the Watts on Wealth show. Time for another message from Barry and me. Back to your radio and back to your house. And we'll conclude our show right after this. And in a moment, talking about one of the biggies, Social Security. Don't go away.
Looking to see what Barry Watts can do for you? Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the WealthCare team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of WealthCare. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in, and this is former News Team 33 news anchorman Ralph Hipp, and I'm loving being on the radio with Barry Watts and Watts on Wealth every Sunday right here. High inflation and the chances of higher taxes are very common themes in our crazy economic climate that Barry can help weather for you. One of the most important things you can do helping preserve yourself against rising prices, and they're still rising, is to get the most out of what you get from your Social Security benefits. That's another key component of the all-weather retirement income strategy we're talking about today, Barry. One of the most important things, protecting ourselves against rising prices. Oh, I already did that part. All right, so take it away, Barry. We'll get to your answer here. All right.
Ralph, when it comes to talking about Social Security, most people don't know how much income Social Security can provide them. In fact, the Insured Retirement Institute found that only 42% of workers could correctly identify the average Social Security benefit, and 4 in 10 of them overestimated the amount that they would get from Social Security. So if you're anticipating higher benefits, this could leave you with a gap in your ability to cover expenses. And so pause just a moment and let me tell you this. When I'm talking with someone and we're trying to dial in what they have in pensions and Social Security, a lot of times people want to answer me in round numbers. Oh, I get $2,500. Oh, really? Show me. Show me the statement from Social Security. And okay, well, they dig it out and they hand it to me, and you look at the statement. Well, they're getting $2,500, but their Social Security is actually $2,900, and they're paying taxes that are withheld, and they're paying for Medicare, so they only see $2,500. But from a tax perspective, they're getting $2,900, and that drives how they pay for Medicare and so forth. So it's important to know specifically what your Social Security number either is or will be in gross dollars before taxes. And so one of the things that we do is offer people a free Social Security analysis to help them actually select the Social Security option that is best for them. I hear different numbers about how many different iterations there are on the ways that you can take Social Security, but suffice it to say, there's a lot more than you want to keep in your brain and work through. Some people will say several hundred different variations on how you can structure that between you and your spouse and when you do it. And what we want to do is help you pinpoint what is the most appropriate time for you to start taking Social Security so you don't miss out on tens of thousands of dollars worth of benefits. Now, The Social Security Administration, they can't help you with this. So you go talk to them. It's against the law for them to answer the question, although I have heard many cases where the lady at Social Security, or gentleman, whichever it happens to be, says, well, you're 62. If I were you, I'd take it. It's your money. That is an explosive tax answer, and you can't count on it. And that's why those people should not even be speaking to that issue. But what we can do is do a Social Security analysis for you and help you make really one of the most important financial decisions you'll ever make. So if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement, and you have not started taking your Social Security benefits yet, well, then call us and we'll get you a free Social Security analysis to help you figure out when's the best time to do that. All you got to do is dial 417-200-3500. That's 200-3500, and tell them you want a Social Security analysis.
That'll be one of the best calls you ever made, folks, to the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry and I on the radio show this weekend, we're talking about your all-weather retirement income strategy. And what it's designed to do is help you be able to get the income that you have to have. You need it in retirement, whether the economy is growing or if it's pulling back. And it's just been all over the map this year. Regardless of what's happening with inflation or taxes, big tax changes coming, or with this wild economy, you're going to need that income to come in, guaranteed. A tax-efficient way to access retirement savings is another big component of the all-weather retirement income strategy. How does that work, Barry?
Well, it's interesting, Ralph. One of the biggest questions I get, it comes from people who know that they need income in retirement, and that's pretty well everyone, but they don't know how to get it or where to get it from. I have people often with multi-million-dollar accounts, but they almost have this fatalistic look on their face. Well, I'm going to retire, but I don't know how I'm going to get income. Well, you've got a couple of $1 million. It's probably going to be okay. We know how to get that income out of your accounts, meaning we know the amount to take and we know which accounts to take it out of so that you pay the least amount in taxes, you have the least impact on Social Security and Medicare, and it makes your money last the longest. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And you really need to work with an income-oriented retirement planning professional to make that happen. You can't just wing it and take some money out, because you will damage yourself somewhere if you approach it from that perspective.
Here's what that gentleman heard on our radio show before, and I will say it again. I believe we say it every week on the show. Today's federal income tax rates, these are the lowest we'll ever see in our lifetimes, okay? And he was really struck by that comment, and it's true. After the tax rates went down with that 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the tax rates expire in 2026. So, Barry, once again, we say every week, it's not a matter of if, but when our taxes will go up. And already 2026, we have a pretty good idea when that's going to happen.
Well, it's certainly going to happen in 2026. And if you want to say, I think they'll change it and it won't happen in 2026, you really think that the Democrats and Republicans are going to get together and agree on anything? We need one majority in control of both houses of Congress and, in my opinion, in control of the White House. And for me, that's going to be the Republicans. If you don't agree with that, I understand. We can have a respectful dialogue around that topic, and then at the end, I'll be glad to tell you why you're wrong. So, and I'm joshing with you, but I'm serious. I think that Republican policies that are being advanced are better policies. But I'm not a shill for the Republicans, because, my Lord, on their team, they got a bunch of knuckleheads too. So here's the deal. You don't want to assume. I just heard it yesterday. Karine Jean-Pierre, whatever the young woman's name is, who is Biden's spokesman.
Yeah, that's her.
She said again yesterday, your taxes will not be affected if you make $400,000 or less. And then I heard Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen this morning on the radio. She was on Fox, and she said taxes will not be affected for people who make $400,000 or less. That is something that came out of the south end of a bovine. It's just not true. And the reason I know that is because I know how to do the tax calculation, and I can sit down and show you what your taxes are going to be and how your taxes are going to be impacted, even if you're making $100,000 or $150,000 or $78,000 or, much less than this $400,000 number. So you need somebody who understands tax to do that math and to show you how that math works so that you see the problem it creates for you if the Democrat proposal goes through, and so you can protect yourself for it. Here's what I believe, Ralph. I'm not optimistic about our ability to shift what goes on in Washington. I'm not convinced that we'll ever win the day there, but here's what I do think. The federal government needs to be starved of its fuel, and the fuel that it runs on is tax dollars. And so you need to quit sending your tax dollars to them, but you need to do it legally through a proper strategy that protects you from taxation. Let the rest of those folks pay the taxes. So if you have at least $250,000 saved for retirement, we can introduce strategies that will help you. All you got to do is call us at the Wealth Care Corporation, or you can send a text, and we'll help you go over your retirement accounts and uncover the potential tax liabilities in them, talk about some strategies to reduce those taxes down the road and put more dollars in your pocket, more dollars for you to spend in retirement, more dollars for long-term care, more dollars to go to your kids and grandkids when you're gone. There's no cost or obligation for that first meeting as we try to figure out whether we can help you. But you do have to call. Call now, 417-200-3500, and we'll help you at the Wealth Care Corporation.
As our Sunday radio show, we're getting a lot more fans every week. We're glad you're one of them. And the response has been great. Call Barry, text, visit, or call during the week and get with Barry Watts at the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, if there are, let's say, no words of wisdom coming out of Washington right now, let's close with a couple of quotes of words of wisdom. One great one, the man may be the head of the family, but the woman is the neck. She tells the head where to turn. And that's some good Mother's Day wisdom right there.
I love that.
Stand the test of time, and we're going to share some more with you coming out of Washington. Really, this is before Washington. Benjamin Franklin. He was more of a New York, Philadelphia, France kind of a guy. Incidentally, Michael Douglas is playing Benjamin Franklin right now. We're still talking about Ben Franklin and the Michael Douglas series on Apple TV. But I'm going to give you this quote, and I want you to talk about what it has to do with retirement planning. So Ben Franklin said, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." And that's something to think about. Even we can think about that today.
Well, it certainly is. And Ralph, I think it's interesting that you mentioned we're still talking about Ben Franklin, because I'm pretty sure in 250 or 300 years, nobody's going to be talking about Barry or Ralph. But we'll do our best. So in our business, this idea of little expenses, small leak, sinking a great ship. In our business, we call it dripping nickels. Just a nickel here and a nickel there, and one nickel isn't that much. But you add up all those little drips, and now you start dripping dollars. So I think it's important to pay attention to your monthly expenses, particularly because now we do everything on a credit card, and it's automated every month. I wonder how many people listening to us have got multiple streaming services on their television. How many of your grandkids have got multiple streaming services on their television, subscribe to multiple music sources, paying fees that they don't have to pay? So you need to be paying attention to the little nickels, because that's how you keep big dollars.
Now, Ben Franklin might be streaming Apple TV. Well, let me see what this guy did playing me on television, whether he liked it or not. But yeah, Barry, if we had the list, and you can search and go over the list of all your streaming and subscription services, and you would be shocked, friends, what the kids have on the iPads they might have purchased if they know your password, and those streaming services. Let's watch this. Let's watch that. It's a long list. And that plus eating out or getting I call it $4 coffee, which is now $6 coffee. And that stuff all adds up. And so in retirement, Barry, for me and my wife and for all of us out, we need to be looking for those lists and cut back on that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So I'll get with my favorite mom, Sheila, and we'll see if we can cut back on that. But don't cut back on listening to Barry and me on Sunday morning. Barry, that'll be it for this weekend. Thanks for another great Watts on Wealth radio show and for the podcast. And we'll see you on KY3 later on this week, won't we?
I'm looking forward to that, Ralph, and to my wife, Kelly, to my mother, Cheryl, and to all you moms out there. Thank you for sacrificing so much for us. It's so little that we just give you one day to celebrate. To you dads, take care of that woman. Protect her and provide for her. To your kids, honor your mother. And Mom, have a great Mother's Day.
Well said, Barry. Thank you, moms and everybody, for joining us for Watts on Wealth, and for Barry and the team. This is Ralph Hipp, and we'll see you again and hear us again next Sunday.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.